Alright, please, someone, let me know what the hell this actually is. I have honestly got no freaking clue what is going on. Speed Duels turned into Mario Kart racing. Last time I checked, I thought Yu-Gi-Oh! Was a bizarre anime where this kid plays a children's card game that somehow linked to a game played by ancient pharaohs, but now this kid has one of these pharaohs trapped in his retarded ass body who has the bizarre ability to believe in his deck of cards that allows him to pull whichever one that he needs by looking very gloomy and making dramatic hand-flinging actions. I have no clue, and I have no idea what is more nuts. Week-long card battles or this, where they duel on bikes. Alright, I guess they do duel on bikes in the show this is based off of, but you aren't really playing the card game here. Wheelie Breakers is primarily a racing game. I had no idea what to expect going into this. Could a Yu-Gi-Oh! Video game spin-off title be actually good? The game does look kind of like it was made on a budget. The graphics work well enough, although there is some detail lacking and the futuristic cityscapes aren't particularly standout. None of it is outright bad, but I'm just wanting to point out that it isn't cutting edge either. Alright, it's time for some surprising honesty here. I actually had a lot of fun with this game. First off, the game is more Mario Kart racing than anything else. The tracks are a little simplistic, but that's okay because you don't even notice it due to the card system, which occupies the majority of your attention whenever you're on a straightaway. The cards can kind of be considered like your items from Mario Kart. However, this is one of the only times I've seen items done right in a non-Mario Kart game. As outrageous as it may seem, I think the item usage is even better than Mario Kart's, though perhaps it could have used just a little more polish. So before you go into a race, you make a deck. You start out with 15 cards for your deck, and then you can unlock the ability to buy more and different cards as you accomplish feats in the game. When you start a race, you start with 5 cards from your pre-built deck. Essentially, this means that you start off with 5 different items. Whenever you run over a card icon on the track, you add a card to your hand. Whenever you use a card, it's used up for that race. If you burn through your entire deck, drawing all 15 cards, or however many you put in, you cannot get any more for the rest of the race. You are essentially out of items at that point, regardless of whether or not you run over another card icon. You also have a 6 card limit for how many cards you can keep in your hand at once. The cards vary greatly in what they can do, but they are essentially either power or support. Monster cards allow you to summon a monster with the attack power of the particular monster, as well as the defense, which makes up its hit points. Stronger monsters take longer to summon, and there is a longer cooldown period between blasts. Smaller monsters, while easily one-shotted, sometimes have really nice special abilities. For example, there's the Sonic Chick that can't barely hit anything and comes out with only 300 hit points, when other good monsters typically have an attack of, about 2,000 or so. However, this monster's special ability is that he can't be damaged by any monster with an attack of 1900 or more. Basically, in the right circumstances, if you're lucky, he'll shield you from anything the enemy throws at you. You can then try to control your opponent using support cards such as the level down card that'll give top speed. You can try to block until you manage to find a more powerful monster in your deck and then start whooping ass. Or you can try to be sneaky and wait till the very last lap and then pile on the Rush Recklessly cards, which act as turbos to try to win the race at the very last second. And you can use a Nightmare Steel Cage, which keeps the opponent directly behind you from being able to use its monster's firepower. There are a few different approaches to this game you can take, and sometimes different situations require different kinds of decks to outright own in them. Sometimes trying to control the opponent works best, sometimes outright pulverizing them with strong monsters works best. It varies between the one-on-one racers and the Grand Prix mode where you're facing an entire cluster of opponents. Also, there's a difference between regular racing and survival mode as well. The card game aspects all work really well. It's really just items, although I would consider a more clever usage of them. There's some cards that you can use that are pretty much outright useless, but then you just don't need to put them in your deck either. The actual racing works, although turning properly is a pain in the ass, and sometimes the physics when you accidentally graze a wall can be a little wonky. Sometimes it just slows you down a little, as it properly should, but then other times, well, you kind of stick to it and it screws up your entire game as you find yourself backwards and you need to restart. This doesn't happen all of the time, but it is kind of annoying when it does happen, which it certainly does on occasion. I wouldn't have minded a little more variety in the tracks, as most are rather simple and don't really stand out too much. Really though, it hardly even matters, as the main focus in this game, between making pain in the ass tight turns, is battling. Sometimes in other racing games, I consider the high number of laps you must repeat to be a bit of a crutch, but it's unnoticeable here, as you're always doing something different and almost always in a slightly different situation. I really wish this game had an online mode. You can play with your local friends, but then this is the kind of game where you want to go out and face new strangers with the cleverly made customized deck that you make. However, you can't, which is a real bummer. If you could, I would have actually gone on to say that this would be a must-buy game for all kart-style racing fanatics. I really do feel a little nutty making this review, but I really enjoyed this game. It's hard for me to even really associate this game with what I consider to be Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I really have no idea what the hell any of this is. But anyway, in regards of the game itself, Wheelie Breakers yearns for just a touch more polish, but it's still really fun. Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's Wheelie Breakers for the Nintendo Wii receives an 8 out of 10.